Hello, guys and gals, and people in between. I am Aegis Sound Levity of the Interrobang Group,
And I am Roger Radio.
and today we are going to be talking about a movie.
Which is, in my opinion, James Dean's greatest role he has ever done. And yes, it is Rebel Without a Cause. And I figured that because it is the 70-year anniversary coming up right now, actually, I figured this would be a great time to talk about it. And also, it's the 70-year anniversary since James Dean passed away, too.
Yep.
So I've watched it obviously a few times. It was a pretty good movie, man, and I showed it to you for the first time ever. What was your thoughts about
Yeah.
it?
It had a slow start, but it had its moments.
Yeah. Now, the one thing that the movie really did encapsulate was pretty much the coming of age melodrama stuff that was going on in the 50s, especially with how rebellious a lot of the teens at that time were starting to get. Now, my grandma Joyce, she was a high school senior when this movie came out, and she told me many times that, yep, that was pretty much the attitude and mentality that we all had back in them days. Now, the one thing that also makes this movie very unique also was that it's supposed to also be a cursed film because of the unforeseen events that happened to the actors who played the main characters in the movie. We obviously know that James Dean, he was killed in that car crash, which was to lead up to the curse of Little Bastard, his car, which I'm surprised that did not even make a cameo in the movie.
Mhm.
And this was 1 week right before the movie came out. And so, just like with when Heath Ledger died right before the Dark Knight, his death like amped up the Dark Knight's release. This did the James Dean's death did the same thing for Rebel Without a Cause. And then, in addition to that, Natalie Wood, who was the main actress in it, she ended up drowning tragically due to unforeseen events, which is still debated many years to this day. And then Sal Mineo, who played the other main character, he was stabbed to death in an alleyway while being mugged. But I think what
All
made
right.
this movie, or, all the unforeseen events happen was, of course, Little Bastard, who we all know. He was a Porsche 550 Spider that James Dean got for himself because he was also doing enduro racing as well, which really fits in with one of the scenes that we will get into soon. And uh, many people that came into contact with the vehicle itself were either severely injured or killed. Little Bastard was on a tour to talk about like car crashes or whatever, and the car itself vanished, and no one's been able to find it since.
Hmm. Yeah, so I didn't actually take any notes for this, but I made some mental notes of the parts that I really liked.
Yeah. Now, obvious.
So I'll have
Now,
you take lead on this video.
what's that?
So I'll have you take the lead on this video.
Okay, I got you, man. So obviously, the movie really starts off with right before we get started, it came out on October 27th in 1955, which is very good timing. It was directed by Nicholas Ray. The screenplay was by Stuart Stern and Irving Schulman, and the story was by Nicholas Ray himself, produced by David Westbart, and obviously starred a really good lineup, including James Dean, Natalie Wood, Sal Mineo, Jim Backus, Ann Doran, Corey Allen, and William Hopper. Cinematography was done by Ernest Haller, edited by William H. Ziegler. Music was composed by Leonard Rosenman, and the production company was obviously Warner Brothers Pictures.
Yeah, and Jim Backus, we know he played Thurston Howell in Gilligan's Island.
Yeah. And another cool thing is William Hopper, who was in the movie as well. He played the main lead investigator in the show Perry Mason. So that's actually how I knew who William Hopper was.
All right, let's get into the movie.
Alrighty. So it obviously opens with James Dean as a character, Jim Stark. He's obviously drunk out of his mind and was playing with something, and he gets picked up by the cops, taken to the juvenile division of the police station, and he crosses paths with a Plato, who was played by Sal Mineo, who was brought in for killing a litter of puppies. And then Judy, who was played by Natalie Wood, was in there for violating her curfew. But she ends up getting really mad. She got into a fight with her father, and she just had like a breakdown. For some reason, he just kept laughing at that part. I don't know why.
I know what it was, but something about that, I couldn't stop fucking laughing.
Yeah. There was another part you laughed at. And it was there was the police sirens, and James Dean obviously was playing along with that. Hey, that's enough, Snack Eye, you, or whatever it was, you know. Dude, I'm telling you, I really gotta start getting more Starbucks creamer because this is really fucking good.
Yeah.
Now all three of them are being um uh, they obviously all three of them have were apparently suffering personal problems at home, which is why they acted the way they did, obviously, because of their rebellious attitudes. And Stark's parents come in, and obviously he is like getting fed up with them because his mom is quote unquote dominating or being the father, and the father was being the mother. And he's like, "You are tearing me apart! You say one thing, she says another, and everybody changes back again!" And finally, he ends up being brought into the officer's office, and he tries to punch him, and he gets thrown to the ground. And he say, "You know what? Go ahead and punch this desk. It's okay." And he just let it all out and shit. And obviously, this was like how many times they had to move in the past year because of all the trouble that Jim kept getting into, including fights and everything else. And then the detective gives him like his number or whatever, says, "If you need to talk, man, I'm right here." And in the end, Jim does apologize to his parents, and it's like, everything's all hunky dory, let's go home. But before that, Natalie Wood's character Judy ended up dropping whatever the hell that thing was, and he grabbed it and he puts it in his pocket. So obviously that opening scene pretty much set the tone for the rest of the movie to come out, in my opinion. Ladies and gentlemen, Aegis has left the chat. And while you're at it, ladies and gentlemen, be sure to subscribe to my podcast as well.
I had to grab something that will come into play soon.
Oh, okay, I gotcha. What did you think of that scene overall, man?
I don't know. I thought it had a slow start, as I said. I
Oh,
don't know. It didn't really catch my attention yet.
okay. Okay, so obviously, Jim, he starts his first day at the new school, and he runs into Judy, and he's like, "Hey, I know you from somewhere, right? Hey, you need a ride or something? I'm going to drive there." And she's like, "I go with the kids," and comes out a whole group of kids, and obviously they were dressed like greasers, which is like the correct term for them, because you know, like how they all wear the leather jackets and they make sure they look good and whatnot with their hair.
Hmm.
Obviously, I can't do that because obviously it ain't grown out enough like yours is. So,
Hmm.
and so he heads there. He accidentally steps on the school's logo, which is probably the unspeakable thing, just like the equivalent of you cannot eat the fruit. You know what I mean? The forbidden fruit. But
Yeah.
apparently, nope, not with the school logo. You can't step on that. No, Plato is combing his hair back, and then he apparently takes like some kind of affection to Jim. And Jim decides to like go to the planetarium where they were doing a school trip or whatever. He wanted to become friends with that gang, and obviously they ended up. He wanted to try to play along with like what they were doing, making sound effects to like some of the whatever the fuck was going on in the stars. Right, there was a cow and he or
Yeah.
Taurus right there, and he decides. And obviously,
Yep.
that was apparently a no-no to them. But they're like, let's test him, see what kind of a guy he is, right? And we see what happened with that. Plato tries to warn Jim, I wouldn't mess with them if I was you. I wouldn't. I think probably the next scene, I think, is where the action really picked up. Because they decide, hey, there he is, and there's his car right there. Grabs a switchblade, pops the tire open, and it's like, let's have a knife fight or whatever. Yep, like that. Ugh.
It was actually illegal to carry these on the street here in Minnesota.
So much for self-defense. Whatever happened,
Uh,
we should. I guarantee if we had a Republican governor, they would immediately pass a stand your ground law. Just saying. Yep, and apparently, Buzz, who is the main guy of that gang, he decided to call him a chicken, which is apparently a no-no to Jim. I'm
yep.
not a chicken. And picks up the knife. They get into it. They weren't stabbing. They just did like like the just polka or whatever it is. Like just jabs and whatnot.
Yeah.
He
I don't know. This part
disarms.
is where the movie actually started to pick up and I started actually enjoying it.
Yeah.
There's this
Yeah.
little knife fight.
Yep. And eventually, Jim does disarm Buzz. And Buzz is like, just say the word and you're dead. You are cold. I'll meet you somewhere, but not with those. Too dangerous, man. And he's like, you know about this bluff or whatever, Cliff? And he's like, one of the other goons says, but that's too dangerous. Hey, how about you get us some cars? We're going to have a little chickie run. And that's fine with me. And obviously, a guard comes to break it up. All right, let's get out of here. And one of the goons decides to do a Hitler impersonation with his hat. And it's so funny that I'm bringing this up because of fucking Oktoberfest. All right, yeah, but obviously I'm not gonna reenact it. I'm not gonna reenact it because I don't want to offend anyone out there. So, but you all would know what I'm talking about with that.
Hmm.
Um, no, I think that was like I said, that knife fight like set the tone for the entire movie. Obviously, that's where the
Yeah.
action really picked up.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Yep. So Jim heads home and is like, what would it says to his father who is wearing like a like a maiden's dress or whatever kind of thing, or one of the maid blouses. Is
Hmm.
he's like, Dad, what would you do if you got called out and you have to defend your honor? And his father was very hesitant to give him a direct answer. He's like, just give me a fucking answer. And obviously, he was like, what happened? Because he saw the blood, and Jim was like, yeah, it's blood. What happened? what I was telling you about. Now, are you gonna answer my fucking question? He didn't say it like that. I don't even know how. I don't know if swearing was like fully allowed in movies at that time. Actually, it's funny. Like when I look back on it, the rating system didn't come into play until after Night of the Living Dead came out. But yet there was hardly a lot of swearing on film. Like Aegis, did you ever think about that?
Mm-mm. Personally, I've never understood the stigma against swearing in general. I mean, it's just a
Right,
fucking word. I
right.
understand like racial slurs, I get that, but just saying
Yeah,
like fuck, it's like who the fuck cares? Fuck's just a fucking word.
right. Heck, there was something on Facebook that I wanted to buy. It's like one of those things that you put on your desk, like if you're in an office, and it says "fucker in charge of you fucking fucks."
Hmm.
And that pretty much is me every time, dude. Like I'm old, I'm tired. I had a fruit fly on my microphone, and I work with fucking children, you know. All right, so continuing back with the movie here. Here he decides, all right, I'm gonna challenge him, and then goes out and puts on his rebellious looking jacket because, like, you know how they looked back then, and goes out. All right, I'm going on this chickie run. Meanwhile, Judy, beforehand, goes to dinner and tries to kiss her dad on the cheek, you know, and he's like, we don't do that anymore. Gives her a little slap and whatnot, being like, no. And of course, apparently, it was legal to slap women back in the days.
Hmm. Back in the good old days.
Where you had to assert your dominance to put them in their place, obviously. Not that I do not condone domestic violence, but that was the norm back then, ladies and gentlemen. So, obviously, she was mad and she ends up going out as well. You know, obviously, she was dating and they all gather around. Plato was there too to support Jim and Buzz, and this was the one part that actually did melt my heart a little bit was that Buzz and Jim were all nice and whatnot, and you know they shared like a moment when they were looking over the cliff, and Buzz like, you know something, I do like you, I like you, man, and that part was what really made me melt.
Yeah,
And
this is
then
another
obviously,
really good scene with the fucking chicken thing.
yeah,
But then I know I also really like this part.
oh yeah. And then we get to the race, the little chickie run, as they called it. And they're both in the vehicles, and Judy's like, "All right, start your engines, lights on," and they just race. And then the challenge was whoever could jump out first is the chicken and they have to do it right before they hit the cliff. But unfortunately, Buzz didn't jump out.
Yeah,
His
didn't his sleeve get caught on the car door or something so he couldn't get out?
Yep, he couldn't get out, unfortunately, and he couldn't do much because he had to have his hand on the steering wheel, and Jim did jump out, and sadly, Buzz fell to his death, man. And then, of course, knowing that everyone would be in trouble for it, they all scattered immediately, including Jim, Plato, and Judy. They all get out of there, and obviously, they ended up getting out of there in time and whatnot. They also, Judy was in shock herself, and Jim, he gives her that thingamajig that he found at the juvenile center, right? That gives it back to
Mhm.
her, and drops her off at home, and then Plato and Jim all get out of there. Jim starts to fall asleep, but his parents woke up to him being home now, and he told him what happened.
Yeah, he really wanted to go to the police with it, but his parents insisted that he didn't.
Yeah, sure. His mom was like, why should you take the fall if everyone else was involved? Or why should you be involved? But he was like, but I am involved. All of us are involved. A kid died, and you're telling me that I should lie? Right? But they did not want him to go to the police at first. They were just like, just don't go right now. you know. And his dad was kind of hesitant to like really step into be a father or whatever kind of thing. He was getting mad and he tried to strangle his own father, man. And he just runs out in a rage, goes to the police station. Some of the other goons were there, and they thought that he was there to turn them in. But and they were convinced that he did rat him out. But in reality, he got pushed away. Like the cop who was there was like, just please come back tomorrow or whatever. So one of those goons was played by Dennis Hopper too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the goons decide, oh, it's time to get payback. So they end up getting Plato. They grabbed it, they browbeated him or whatever. They grabbed his address book so they could get
Address
Jim's
book.
address,
Yeah.
and they ended up finding him. They apparently hung a giant cock in front of the door.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a chicken; it's a cock. Judy was so heartbroken by it, she ended up leaving or something like that. Or Jim called the house to talk to Judy or whatever, and they did meet up eventually. And they were like, "I don't want to go back home." So they just decided, all right. Jim was like, "There's this abandoned mansion that Plato told him about early on in the story." Or where they could have hidden if the goons didn't run into them at the planetarium. And they're like, let's go there. And Plato knew if Jim wasn't at home, because he was trying to warn Jim about what the goons were going to do. He knew that they were going to be at that abandoned mansion, so he ends up there. And he's like, they're coming. You know what I mean? Yeah, we know, we're hiding here. And then the parents or whoever ends up calling Juvenile or the police, you know, to be like, we gotta find them fast. And eventually the goons did find the abandoned mansion where they were hiding. Plato had a gun in case he was going to shoot them, right? He did. Judy and Jim go off to do whatever while Plato ended up falling asleep, right? And yeah, that's pretty much it. Then they ended up they were searching around the mansion for him. Plato was trying to find him. He suffers a mental breakdown or whatever, and he ends up shooting one of the goons, thinking that he killed him, but in reality he didn't. And Jim was trying to calm him down, and he just ends up fleeing, accusing Jim of abandoning him, which he never did. And the police end up converging on them. Ends up shoots at the cops, right? Then he ends up over at the planetarium once again, and everyone converges in, you know, with the Juvenile, the police, Jim's parents, Plato's. I'm trying to think of what she would be technically to him, because his Plato's parents weren't all there, you know. But they end up there. Jim decides, I'm going to try and convince him to just come peacefully. And
Come
Plato,
peacefully.
huh? Or you know
Come.
what I
He
mean?
said
Trying
come.
to calm
He
him
said
down.
come.
No, I didn't. But anyways, like I was saying, he ends up. Jim was able to talk him down, and just tells him, come on, man. It's well, let's go home and all that." But that ends up going awry. He was like, "I don't know them. Can you have them turn off the lights?" They did turn off the lights at first, but they thought that one of them had another gun, and they decided to turn on the lights. Right before then, Jim asked Plato to look at his gun. He takes out the clip, right? Ooh, buffalo. Nice. I might have to try one of those. Then He ends up freaking out once again, charges out while wearing Jim's jacket because Jim gave him his jacket so he could be warm. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, they killed him. They killed Plato.
Yeah, honestly, kind of a sad ending, but I thought it was a really good ending.
Right? I think that was probably the best acting that James Dean did in that scene. And he even says to them, I got the bullets,
Yep.
you know? And yeah, dude, that was sad. Like, Jim what ended up having a breakdown. He cried. His dad's there to console him, and his dad promised him, I'm gonna be a much better father than I am." And he puts his jacket on Jim to keep him warm, and then he introduced Judy to his parents. They leave, and that's it. The end.
Yep. If you ask me, I would give that movie a 7.9 out of 10.
I said 8 out of 10, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, while it is not exactly one of the top greatest films of all time overall, it did make James Dean's legacy.
Yep.
And it is
Yeah, I thought it was.
and it
Oh,
is
go
even
ahead.
often considered one of the defining movies from the 1950s, and rightfully
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, I thought it was really good. I just didn't think it was quite an 8, so I gave it a 7.9.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, it's a really good movie. Like, if you really get into it, And I've been watching a whole lot more of these old films. They're really good.
Yeah. Speaking of old movies, another old movie we should do sometime is 12 Angry Men.
Oh yeah, I've heard about that movie. I've been wanting to watch that for a while, but I hear it's really
It's
good.
pretty good. It is really good.
No, we'll have to do that another time. I know you. I also mentioned another James Dean film, and you wanted to check on it. It was East of Eden.
Yeah, it's based on a John Steinbeck novel that I have. I want to read the book before I watch the movie though, so
Yeah, well, you just let me know when the time's right, and we'll get into it.
yeah, I have the movie on my shelves. So whenever I get around to that book,
Yeah.
I'll read it.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, what can I say? I would recommend it. You know.
Yeah, me too.
All right, that's pretty much all I got to say, dude. Anything you want to say before you sign us off?
Subscribe, watch our other videos. We just recorded a really fun video yesterday. We're gonna upload it soon.
Yeah. And all that, so.
Also, subscribe to the Roger Radio podcast. We got some good shit going on over there.
If you're into music style, merch stuff, and I would recommend it, so.
Yeah.
Alrighty, that's pretty much it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching this movie review. I wish it was a little longer, but it is what it is. We got Clocktoberfest we gotta go to, so.
Yep.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching, and as always, until next time, ta-ta for now!
Peace.